Most of the time was spent just flying around, hauling ammunition and mail and hot food or whatever, and going out to some fire base at some place and resupplying them and picking up their mail and whatever it is that they had, or maybe somebody's getting ready to go home. So they jump on board and you fly them over to the big city and drop them off at headquarters so they could get out of there. And it was like being a flying truck driver most of the time. You just resupply all the time. Tops of mountains, down the valleys. Um, just missions like that. The combat assaults were totally different because now everybody knows what's happening. Um, we're going hot on this one. You know, during the week, most of the time it was single ship. Here's your helicopter. Here's your crew. Here's the orders for the day for what this particular bird has to do. Go do it. And off you go. You spend your whole day just flying from place to place to place, doing whatever it is that they needed to have done. On a combat assault, ain't nobody going out by themselves. Now you're going out as a unit, and chances are you were also paired up with other units. In our case, there was a 61st Assault Helicopter, the 173rd, and of course the 498th Dust Off was there too. They were on standby too because they knew that they'd be working on picking up wounded and things of this nature. But we'd have our gunships with us. We'd have our assault companies with us. If it was a big operation, then they'd have Chinooks involved at the same time. You could have 2 or 3, 4 separate helicopter companies all on one operation. And
How many total?
good God, you could have 40, 50 helicopters going at one shot. We had one operation that was absolutely enormous, and we must have had 150 birds in the air at that point. We were actually lifting the entire complete Tiger Division from one point to another. So that meant a lot of runs back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You drop off your initial assault teams, then you run back to the Korean compound, load up a bunch more, ferry them back out again, and just keep resupplying, reinforcing the guys that are already on the ground. So you spent your whole day doing that, or the better part of it. And then if there's time left over, then you went back and you picked up more ammunition and water and things of this nature for these guys. And then after a couple of days, when things wound down, okay, they get the whole bunch of us back again, and now we're going to pick them up and bring them back. And that was the better part of the deal. I like that because, you know, we're picking these guys up, and I mean, we dropped them off in the shit. We're taking them out of the shit, and that was the nice thing to see. These guys would be so happy to see you coming in and getting them out of there. You know, they knew they were headed for the hot showers and the hot chow, and happy to be alive. And that was the best part of the missions, was picking these guys up. Because they didn't even have to say thank you. Just looking at their faces was enough to tell me that we are really appreciated today. We weren't so appreciated when we dropped them off, but they sure were happy to see us when we come back to get them. But yeah, that was it. And that day, that one day, my God, I logged 16 hours actual flight time that day. And we took off at like 4 in the morning, 3:30, 4 in the morning. We'd get back until after 10, 11 o'clock that night. And I remember we're flying in a loose single file formation up the coast heading back. I was so tired. I'm just, you know how you can kind of, when you're driving your car, your eyes are so heavy. And well, that's kind of how I was getting at that point. And I'm just like this. And of course, as I'm starting to doze, I'm drifting a little one way or drifting a little bit the other way. And the guy I was flying with, because it was dark, we couldn't see each other's faces and stuff. He comes on the intercom. He goes, "You all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just bored." But that little bit just woke me right up again, because you know, the drumming and the vibration and the droning of that aircraft kind of lull you into half asleep mode, especially after 16 hours. In fact, we didn't even shut down but once, and that was to grab a bite to eat. We'd refuel, wouldn't shut off. We'd be hot refueling, just sit there at an idle. Crew chief gas you up, and as soon as you were gassed up, you moved and got away and went somewhere else. You're tired at that point. You're turning into an automaton at that stage of the game. You're getting numb from the same drone every day, same crap every day, up early, back late. You get tired. You really do. That's when you start making mistakes, and that's where the R&R come in, or the leave, or whatever, to get you out of that for a week, and help you try to decompress a little bit. So when you came back, you kind of had woken up some, and yeah, yeah. Sometimes it worked. Other times you came back even more depressed because you were having such a good time in Hong Kong, and now you're back into this again. Ugh. But yeah, the emotions in that place was like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down, depending on what's going on. Everybody had a good day. Hey, you're at the club that night, drinking beer, partying, whooping, having a good time. Things didn't go so good that day, and everybody sitting around the bar at the club going like that. It just depends on what happened that day. If nobody got killed, it was a good day. Picking up the wounded was the worst of it. I mean, it was a double-edged sword. On one side, you're feeling pretty good because you're doing what you can to help these guys. But on the other side of the coin, you know how bad they're off. And you feel really bad for them because they're in the back there bleeding out, and you're going as fast as that damn thing can possibly go, trying to get it back to the main hospital in the city and get these guys some treatment. And you got the medics back there, and they're trying to keep these guys alive and bandaged up, and it's pretty bad sometimes. We had to land in the river one time so that we could use the river water to wash the blood and everything off the floor. It was horrendous. I mean, the smell. I mean, these guys have been out in the boonies for several days to a week or two, and between the smell and the sweat, and the blood, and everything else, it was a pretty unique sensory overload, you might say. It got to the point you almost shut yourself off, and you just concentrated on the job, because if you let your mind wander a little bit, it kind of played games with you.
What would it tell you?
Well, it wouldn't tell us anything.
What kind of games?
Well, it's just your own mind games. You start thinking about these guys wounded, or the dangers involved, and your imagination starts to take off. You can't do that. You gotta shut it off somehow, and that meant, in my case, it was just concentrating on flying and paying attention to what's going on, and try to put the rest of it on a back burner someplace, because you can't let your emotions get a hold of you, because if you do, that's when you start making bigger mistakes. Can't do that. It'll kill you. You learn how to shut your emotions off after a while, because the emotions are what will do you in. If you stop being clinical about it and businesslike and let your emotions take over, it's not good. I mean, there was at least once where I told them, I'm not going out today. I don't care what you say. I am not mentally capable of dealing with this today. I've just been too much. Okay. All right. We got more than enough pilots. Take the day off. Thank you. And go up in the room and just veg out for a few hours and try to get your shit together, decompress a little bit, because you knew that tomorrow, next morning, you're going to be back in it again. But for the most part, you didn't even do that. You didn't want to let anybody down. It didn't feel like you were holding your end up. So it had to be pretty bad before you finally went down to the CO and said, look, I need a break today. Once in a while you get a day off or something like that. So, that's what they considered or used to help you cope with it, a day off. And a day off, when you had it planned, you knew it was coming. Then you could plan for things. Like where we were was pretty primitive. Our mess hall, well named. But on a day off, when I knew one was coming, I'd go down to the PX and I'd buy 2 or 3 reel of blank reel-to-reel tape. And then when the guys were heading off on their missions during the day, you'd hop on board one that was heading your direction, and they'd drop me off at Phuket Air Force Base. Now, the Air Force guys knew how to live. Flush toilets, hot meals, I mean, that's pretty bad when you go to an Air Force base for a vacation. But they had a room set up, a building, and it was just row upon row upon row of reel to reel tape decks. And they had a monster library there. And I'd take a book and my blanks, and I'd spend pretty much all day long sitting there reading my book and making myself copies of stuff in their library. In fact, I still got the box with all the reel to reels still in it. The reel to reel doesn't work for shit anymore, but I still got all the tapes. But I mean, I literally spent all day there. And you wander on down to the flight line and get on the little phone and call the tower and ask them to put out a broadcast, see if any of our birds were in the area. And if there were, they'd call one of them in. They'd come in for a landing. You'd jump on board and flutter off, take you back to the base. It played a big part. It was a touch of home for most of us. I mean, we liked to rock and roll to begin with, but this is what was happening back at what we call the world, where we were. It was another universe, but it bringing in, like I said, you had the Rolling Stones and Creedence Clearwater and all, the Animals and all these other bands, and almost everybody in the company had at least a reel-to-reel tape deck, and there'd be music playing all the time, somebody listening to something. It played a big part. We were barely out of our teenage years at that point, so yeah, music was very big, and there was a couple of them that almost became theme songs for us. The Animals had that one, "We Got to Get Out of This Place." That was a biggie with us. We definitely wanted to get out of that place. That's the one song I really remember from back then, because as soon as it came on, everybody started singing, because that's what we wanted. None of us really wanted to be there. Jesus, let us go home. This is bullshit. But yeah, in answer to your question, music was a very large part. I don't know what the hell we would have done if we hadn't had that. It'd been pretty grim as it was. It gave you a little respite if you were in a spot where you could be quiet. You just close your eyes and listen to the music, and for a little while you weren't there anymore. You open your eyes, okay, reality check. I'm still here. But yeah, it was big. Man, I hope I don't eat it now. After spending all this time here, I'm getting close. And man, you hear too many stories about guys getting it on their last mission and things of that type nature. We had a very strict rule in aviation: 8 hours between bottle and throttle. And so for my last 5 days that I was there, I think I stayed hammered the whole time. I said, if I'm drunk, they can't send me. I'm done. I've hung my ass out in the breeze long enough. I am not going to get killed on my last day here. The last flight, well, it wasn't a conscious decision to do that. So I really wasn't aware that it was my last flight. All I was aware of was, I'm getting short. Let's do safe things today. And it was like that for maybe like the last couple of weeks. You became more cautious. I mean, you still did the job, but if you didn't have to take that chance, if it wasn't life and death for somebody, you didn't do it. You don't have your mail today? Sorry about that. I'll come back tomorrow maybe, and if things aren't so snaky, we'll drop it off. But I wasn't going to lose any sleep over some guy not getting a letter if it meant me getting killed. So, yeah, it really wasn't a case of knowing that it was my last mission. Towards the end, the last week or so, you really started to get cautious, and because the end was in sight. When you got 6 months to go, But boy, man, I got 2 weeks to get out of this place. I damn sure ain't going to get killed now if I can possibly do anything to avoid it. So you did milk runs, and they were pretty cool about it at the company level, too. They knew when you were getting short. So they they would try not to assign you to something that was really a can of worms. They'd try to give you milk runs, go pick up the general and bring him to here, or, stand around on standby in case something happens. Oh, cool. I'll sit here all damn day as far as I'm concerned. So, no, it wasn't a conscious decision, but it was more, well, it became a conscious decision when it was about 5 days out. And I said, I'm done. I'm not flying anymore. And nobody saw me without a can of beer in my hand for the next 5 days. I know the CO was a little bit kind of sideways, but they understood, And this way here, nobody felt that they weren't assigning me to the right place or anything like this. This was strictly on me. And I really can't say I was hammered. Most of the time, I just carried the can around, just to give the impression that I had already been drinking and I shouldn't be flying. But had there been an emergency or something like that, I could have gone. I would have gone. My last day is a blur because most of my stuff is turned in and my room was cleared out. And it was pretty much a matter of just waiting for a ride into the main city to where I could catch a flight down to Saigon and finish my processing and get on that Freedom Bird going home. And I became even more apprehensive. I'm thinking, damn, I hope this son of a bitch don't crash. I'm taking me out of here. So you became very cautious. I did. And just to make sure. I was apprehensive. I was like that little Abner character that used to walk around with a rain cloud over his head all the time. And I just kept thinking, man, with my luck, I'm going to eat it on the last day. I'm going to eat it. But somehow you got through the day and things happened and you got down to Saigon, you processed out. Now you're just waiting for that next flight that takes you home. And being down in Tonsanut, humongous base, you figure your chances of anything happening to you there are like slim and none. So you're feeling pretty safe at this point and start to unwind a little bit and kind of start breathing normal again. And but you still have that apprehension. And I remember as that airliner was leaving the ground when the wheels lifted off and we could all tell that we were actually airborne. Big old cheer went up. Ah! The whole place went nuts inside that airplane because we knew we were headed east and not coming back, unless there's something wrong with the airplane. But it was just a big feeling of relief and apprehension because you knew damn well things were kind of shitty back home with the protesters and that sort of thing. So you were basically leaving one war and heading to another one. Consequences weren't as serious, but it was still an adversarial situation that you're going to walk into when you got home. And you really never realized how bad it really was until you actually got here and started to confront some of these people. And that's when things really got bad. That's when most of the guys started shutting up. I know of a couple guys, as soon as they hit the airport in Seattle, they had civilian clothes stashed in their baggage. And they'd go in the bathroom, and they'd take the uniform off, throw it in the trash, and put on their civilian clothes. Because they didn't want to be recognized walking around as being in the military. Because these bastards would go out of their way to confront you and call you names and give you a hard time. That was bad. That was very bad. You just didn't expect it. I mean, you see...
What did you feel?
Anger, confusion. Why are you people acting like this? And why are you acting like this to me? I didn't have any real say-so, but the attitude was, well, you should have run away. You should have gone to Canada. Sorry, I'm not put together like that. The country called, okay, I went. I didn't have to like it, but I was brought up believing that you did your thing. And these guys here were burning draft cards and running off to Canada. Didn't sit too well with us. The generally feeling being that if you didn't go when you were supposed to go, well, then some other poor bastard had to take your place. So you didn't man up and do what you're supposed to do. You chicken bastard, you let somebody else do it for you. And that didn't sit well with us. Yeah, there were some Vietnam guys who marched in the protests and things like that. To me, they're just as bad as the protesters. I don't care if you win or not. But you came back. That to me was a slap in the face to those of us that were still there. Well, it was a bad thing, and we wanted to stop the war. I said, yeah, bullshit. You don't understand the dynamics of the situation, that you actually gave aid and comfort to the bad guys. You guys were responsible in my eyes for a lot of suffering that necessarily wouldn't have happened. So yeah, there was a lot of bitter feelings. Bitter, I think, was probably the most of it. You want to blame somebody, blame the guys in the White House. They're the ones that sent us. But we come back here, we're your brothers and fathers and things like that, and you turn on us like this? Well, my own family was cool. I mean, I really didn't have much family except my mom and my dad, my brother, and they were all happy to see me come home. My problem was with the civilian population that weren't related to me. And, I almost got arrested 45 minutes after getting back. It was, good God, 12 hours, 16 hours prior, I'm in a war zone. And then all of a sudden here I am in Seattle Airport. And they didn't debrief us or anything like that. It was basically kick you off the plane and say, we'll see you in 30 days when your leave is up. And cut you loose. And of course, you'd been through a lot, you'd seen a lot, and your reactions and the way you handle things are a lot different in a war zone than they are back here. What was perfectly acceptable there was not acceptable here. And I remember getting off the plane, and I'm happy as all get out. I'm home, and I've got a reservation for that afternoon to catch another flight, take me back to Buffalo, be back with my family. I'm doing good. And this was prior to Homeland Security and things like this. I had a Russian SKS rifle that I brought back as a trophy, and a pistol. Shoot, they just put a baggage tag on the thing and stuck it into the baggage, and I'm sitting at the carousel, and here comes my rifle. And I'm walking around this terminal with a rifle slung over my shoulder. And we were, like I said, we weren't allowed to travel in civilian clothes, so we were pretty well marked. So I get to the airline desk where I had my reservations, and they said, "Oh, you're going to be leaving in 4 days." And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I got reservations." "Oh, you have unconfirmed reservations." Wait a minute. What the hell are unconfirmed reservations? That's like saying you're a little bit pregnant. You either have it or you don't. And I was furious. I was so disappointed and pissed off. I'm going to have to spend another 4 days in Seattle when I really wanted to be home. Okay, I got to stay here. So I went down, I called one of the local motels, had them send a shuttle, come and get me. All right, things are still pretty cool at this point. I'm just wandering around the airport. So I go to the main doors to look for the shuttle, and there's all these war protesters out there, banging on drums and tambourines and cowbells, and making a racket and being obnoxious. And I'm thinking, not my circus, not my monkeys. I just want to go to the motel, and first thing I want to do is a nice hot bath. And I'm walking out of the terminal, and one of these asshats grabs me by the arm, and he's sticking this pamphlet or paper or something under my nose, going, "You got to read this. You got to read this." And I said, "Take your freaking hands off of me, and I'm not interested in reading anything you got. Leave me alone." And I started to walk away, and the guy grabbed me again, put his hand on my shoulder. He said, oh, you need to look at this. And I said, if you touch me again, you're going to pull back a stump. Leave me the fuck alone. And just, I don't even know what the hell else I said to him. I just said, just leave me alone. So I turn around, I start to walk away, and I got about 2 more steps, and the son of a bitch grabbed me again. And that's when I lost it. I mean, the curtain came down, and I reverted back to 16 hours prior. And I unslung that rifle, and I swung on him with the rifle. Just missed him. I wanted to take his head off. I was so pissed. And he took a few steps back, and his eyes got real big. And I kind of remember going after him, and he takes off running through the doors, and I'm right behind him, and he's screaming like a girl as we're going through the terminal. And I don't know if I was saying anything or not. I was thinking pretty good. Just stop long enough for me to get a hold of you, you son of a bitch. And as I'm chasing him, I get hit from behind and knocked to the floor. Just went boom, did a big face plant. And I got 3 or 4 people sitting on me, holding me down. And I'm fighting them, and I'm cursing and swearing and carrying on. And I started to get to the point where I got tired. And finally one of them goes, is it safe to let you up, Chief? I'm thinking, who the hell knows my rank? And I said, yeah, I'm too tired. I said, you guys held me down too damn long. I'm too tired. I can't do anything. So I stand up, and one of the guys turned out to be an old retired sergeant major of some kind. And he's got my rifle in his hand, and I'm figuring, okay, it's only a matter of time. They're all wearing rent-a-cop uniforms and this type of thing. I figure I'm going to get arrested. Great. I hope I can make bail before my flight leaves in 4 days, because I'm not coming back. And he said, you come with me. So I follow this guy, and he takes me up to the VIP lounge. I went, whoa, well, this is okay. Not being arrested, at least not yet. And he says, well, he told me who he was, and he said basically that he knows they don't brief us when we get off the plane, and we have no clue what's going on here. And he kind of filled me in on the facts of life now that I'm back, and what to expect and what's going on. And I said, yeah, I got the paper from home. I had a hint that this was going on. I never expected to run into it this soon. So he finally said, all right. Well, he says, you look like you got your shit together now. He says, is it safe to let you go? And I said, yeah. I says, I've had a chance to calm down a little bit and consider the source it's coming from and ignore them. I said, I really just want to go to the motel and have some decent food and a hot bath and relax. Okay, so he hands me the rifle back and wishes me well, and out the door I go. So I call the motel back, and they said, yeah, we were looking for you. I said, well, I was kind of busy, but send a shuttle for me. So they said, okay, we'll meet you by such and such a door in 10 minutes. Fine. So I go walking through the terminal again, and I go out through those doors. That same crew is still out there doing their thing. And I remember when the doors opened, I walked out. It got quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. It all just stopped. And so I'm walking out, and the same jerk that I had my difference of opinion with before was standing right out there in front. So I'm walking by, and I'm just keeping my eyes straight. I'm ignoring them all. And I waited till he was like right there. And just as I walked by him, all of a sudden I went, blah, 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 blah. And the guy goes, ah! And he fell backwards, and I went, yes! I felt so much better. And then I just kept walking and got in the shuttle and went to the motel and kicked back there and relaxed for a few hours. And of course, my first night back, I couldn't sit still. So I went down to the desk and I asked them what's going on around there, someplace I could hang out for a few hours. And they said, well, there's a bar down the road that's kind of, you might like. Got some pool tables and this type of thing. And I said, okay. So the motel took me in the shuttle and drove me to this bar a couple miles away. And I sat there for several hours. I went there every night for the next 3 nights. Not bad. I won $600 shooting pool while I was there. And I didn't consider myself to be that good a pool player. Yeah, but yeah, I made some money while I was there. And then, of course, I got my flight home and went home. I got home about 2 days before Christmas. It was 1970. That was quite a trip. I wasn't what I call being housebroken yet. I mean, I've been living with a bunch of guys for a year in grimy conditions, and nobody really gave a crap. And you get a bunch of guys like that. It gets kind of rough sometimes. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and we're eating dinner. And I looked at my dad and I said, "Hey, pass me the fucking salt, would you?" And they looked at me and I went, "Oops. Sorry. Forgot I'm not sitting with the guys." And that's okay. That's okay. We'll give you a chance to get your shit together, kind of. Okay, good. And it was spooky. And I told him, I said, don't come in the room, try to wake me up or anything like that. I said, because my reflexes are totally different than it was before I left. And I told my mom, I said, if you got to wake me up, use a broomstick, poke me from a distance, give me a little chance to wake up first, and put some distance between us while I'm going through that process. And that's basically how it was, because I slept with a 45 the whole time I was there, because you didn't know the sappers were going to come through the wire and sneak around, because they tried that in a couple places where they got through the wire. They were trying to kill guys in their sleep. So everybody around me knew, don't come bursting through the door, anything stupid like that in the middle of the night. You'll have to get shot. And the reflexes were still there when I got home. So I kind of warned my parents before anything happened that I'm not the same person you knew when I left. And you're going to just have to give me time to reacclimate myself to being back. But that was all right. It was a strange trip. 20 years later, well, I'm out of college. Yeah, I'm married at this point. I'm just working, trying to make a life for myself. And I'm still, at this point, we really didn't know what PTSD was or anything like that. And when you got it, you don't realize that you messed up. You just look around at everybody else and go, what's wrong with you? And it's not them, it's you. And that was my problem for a lot of years. In the morning, the family knew, tiptoe around Dad. Don't ask him any questions that require more than a grunt yes or a grunt no. Try to get me into a discussion, I'll probably chew your ass and storm out of the house, because I just can't deal with things like that in the morning. And you have your anger issues and things of this nature that make life difficult for everybody. And you feel kind of shitty about it because you don't realize why it's happening in the first place. Why am I pissed off? Nothing happened that should have pissed me off, but I'm pissed. And that's kind of how it was. And like I said, we kept quiet back then, even 15, 20 years after the fact. We still kept quiet about it because the way we got received when we came home. You didn't want the confrontations, is what it was. You just wanted to live your life, be quiet. Your patience is a little short with some people that you just think are complete flaming idiots. And yeah, we just didn't talk about it because it was just so terrible the way people treated us when we got back. We learned, shut up. I went into education as a teacher. I was an instructor when I came back, and I discovered I had a flair for teaching. And even though it was a helicopter, it was still teaching. So when I got out, I really didn't know what the hell else I wanted to do with myself. I was always handy with a wrench, but I couldn't see myself pulling engines and schlepping transmissions around a shop when I'm 60 years old. And so I decided to go into teaching. And I said, what the hell can I do? And I decided to become a shop teacher. I got the best of both worlds because I got kind of a blue collar brain, but white collar likes and dislikes, you might say. And I said, where else can I use what I like to do, which is work on cars and bikes and things like this, and get paid for it without busting my ass? Teaching. Be a shop teacher. I always liked my shop teachers when I was a kid growing up. And I said, that's cool. I could do that. So I went back to college and I learned how to be a shop teacher. And I liked it. Unfortunately, I got through that just about the time that the school districts were starting to think that everybody should go to college, and they looked down their noses at people who got their hands dirty to make a living. And so the shop classes started to dry up, and as soon as they possibly could, if somebody quit or retired, they'd close the whole program down, and they'd put another English class in there or some damn thing like that. So I found it become harder and harder to find a job doing that because I was moving around the country. I moved down to Miami, and then I moved to out here, and I never really was staying in one place long enough. But then it got to the point where there weren't any jobs available being a shop teacher anymore. So I went back to school, and another 3.5 years part-time till I got my certification to be a special ed teacher working with handicapped kids. And that kind of gave me a goal. By this time, I was starting to realize that I'm kind of broken myself. And helping these kids was kind of like helping myself. Yeah, I got problems, but I'm looking at these poor little guys and I'm going, oh, man, these guys really got problems. And I also had kind of an attitude about the regular kids, you know, they get the gangbangers and these types of guys. And I go, you know, I can't teach high school. I'll end up in jail. These guys just piss me off to no end. Whereas I'm working with the handicapped kids, if they're aware enough, they're grateful that someone's helping them and taking time for them because they don't have any real friends or anything like this. All they have is their families and their teachers and their classmates, half of them who don't even know they're on the same planet. So working with these kids kind of gave me a purpose. And I'm not going to break my own arm patting myself on the back, but I was pretty damn good at it. I was real good at it. And I was a little unconventional sometimes. And again, I'd be locking horns periodically with the administration, especially those who never spent any time in special ed, and try to explain my methods to them. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So I just, like I did before, I'd nod my head and go, mm-hmm, and I'd go right back to doing what I was doing because I knew it was working. You know, some of the things that they wanted us to do was just an exercise in futility. Bullshit. I want results. I'm results oriented. So if I stumbled upon something that worked, I don't give a shit if it was with the syllabus and what the district wanted or not. I'm not here for you, Mr. Principal. I'm not here for the superintendent. I'm here for this kid. And he or she is my reason for being here. And if I can't help him because you want to tie my hands, why am I here? To fill a space? No. I'm here for that child. And that's the way I played it. I didn't make many friends that way, but hey, when you see these kids improving, if you could get them just at least learn how to tie his shoelaces, that was a big victory. That's a real difficult question. I don't know if I really do value that much in life, to be honest with you. Um, this is so hard to try to even describe because anybody who hasn't lived it or been affected by it probably wouldn't really understand. when I was first getting into the VA, when I first started to understand what PTSD was about, these guys were real hot and heavy, asking me all the time, "Do you want to kill yourself? Do you want to commit suicide?" And I'd say, "Well, at that time, 20 years ago." So yeah, I had entertained the thought a couple of times, but then again, knowing my record, I'd probably fuck it up, and I don't want to end up on as a veggie in a bed connected to a bunch of machines. And that's probably been the one big thing that kept me from carrying it through, because I was afraid I'd screw it up. But as time went on, I finally convinced them that no, I don't have any intentions of hurting myself anymore. Um, I'm working reasonably successful as a teacher. I'm helping kids, blah, 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 blah. But I'll be honest with you, even though I don't have any desire to do anything to myself, if something happened, I really wouldn't care. I'm either here or I'm not here. You know, to me, it doesn't make any difference either way. And it sounds strange, and it's hard to like I said, it's very hard to describe these types of feelings. But and that's where I am kind of today. I'm glad I beat the cancer, and I'm kind of glad I'm still around. But there are days when I just don't give a damn, and it sounds weird, but if I wake up dead, I don't care. And other days I'm going, well, I'm glad I'm still around. But as far as, what was the question you asked me? What do I value now? Well, I kind of lost myself in restoring cars. I got a 66 Dodge in my garage. I actually didn't, I built it for my father, not for me. And that's another story in and of itself. But I got into that, and I think my motorcycles, I didn't realize it till my wife said something, and then I finally said, yeah, I have to agree with you. I became kind of an adrenaline junkie. I missed, yeah, I missed the action. I missed all of that stuff when I was flying. It had the element of danger, but I always felt that I had my shit together enough that unless it was a catastrophic failure of some kind, I could get out of it. I will come out ahead and I will not get killed in the process. And there was more than a few instances of things going wrong, and I always managed to make it. And then when I got out, it was like something's missing. And I couldn't put my finger on it initially. And in fact, it wasn't even when I was out. I kind of got into motorcycles a little bit when I was still in. But when I got out and I was missing that excitement again, that's what I was. There's an empty spot for that. And that's when I really got heavy into motorcycles, because it gave you the thrill, and you know, you kind of live on the edge once in a while, especially in your younger, stupider days on those things. And
Well, you find life on the edge.
yeah, it sounds kind of trite, and it's a cliche, but you don't appreciate life unless you almost die. You know, and maybe there's a little bit of guilt in there, if you want to call it that, survivor guilt. You kind of wonder, how in the hell did I make it when so many of my friends didn't? And it almost became a situation that I'm going to try and live as much as I can, if for no other reason than for these other guys that didn't get a chance. But it's also to help make up for some of the crap that went down before. And yeah, you can go one of two ways. You can just do nothing, or try to do something to make things better. And I'm not sure I had a conscious thought that I was going to go into something to make things better. I still didn't know exactly what the hell I was up to or what I was going to do. It just seemed like a good idea at the time, and it just worked out that way. And after a while, with a few more years and a little bit more maturity, is when I kind of looked at it as, yeah, I'm doing some good here. I'm contributing. I'm feeling a little bit more useful again.
This is what we do in the afterlife. This to me is like therapy. This gives me something to concentrate on and absorb myself into. Come out here and fool around with this thing. Beats laying in a hospital bed. We're waiting for the VA to do something for you. It's been 6 weeks now since they ordered my glasses. It's really interesting when you can't see anything. Getting old is not for sissies. I'd rather still be flying, but this is a good substitute. You get out on the road and it's as close to flying as you'll ever get without leaving the ground. And when I was so sick with the chemo treatments and everything and trying to sleep during the day, it became a real challenge. Chemo I was going through almost 5 months. I've never been so sick in my life. I'd rather go back to Vietnam than go through chemo again. It was a terrible ordeal. Because the stuff is just poison. And you get so sick. I dropped almost 60 pounds while going through that because even water tasted bad. Couldn't eat, couldn't even drink. Thank goodness I had private insurance when I got my cancer, because it took the VA almost a year after I was diagnosed just to admit that, yeah, my service was responsible for it and they would do something for me. And if I had had to wait for the VA, I'd be one of those guys that died waiting for treatment. So I'm about 4.5 years now out of chemo, heading for that magic 5-year mark. And so far, so good. Looks like I'm standing a good chance of actually making it. That Agent Orange stuff was pretty grim, highly toxic. They lied, told us it was harmless. So we had no protective gear, no respirators or anything like that. And I think I might have mentioned it in the interview that I would come back after flying a mission all day long. You could actually write your name in my helmet in the residue. Well, 45 years down the road, it came back to bite me. When I stopped flying, I was missing something, and I just didn't know what it was. And it took me years and years and years to realize it, but it kind of turned me into an adrenaline junkie. And I'm not stupid enough to go bungee jumping or skydiving and things like that. To me, that's insane. But I discovered motorcycles, and I said, wow, I certainly do get enough adrenaline rushes with this when I'm out fooling around if I'm not being careful. And it's been kind of a substitute for flying all these years. Patriot Guard.
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm part of that
Sorry.
that group. It's one last chance, one last time to honor a brother or sister.
Yeah.
It's just turned into more like an honor guard thing. And it's difficult too sometimes, because if you're empathetic at all and you're at somebody's funeral and you see the family crying and
Yep.
everything like that, it touches you. but you can usually see it in their faces and that when they see us all lined up out there with the flags and the bikes, and one last time, you might say, for their loved one. It gets to you. It gets to you. It's kind of a nice thing when you go to one of these things and there's 100 or 200 motorcycles all lined up, and you look at all the old guys that are on them, and they're all dressed up as rough, tough bikers, and yet you know damn well 30, 40, 50 years ago they were all young guys and full of piss and vinegar and ready to go out and save the whole planet, or at least their own ass. It's kind of creepy now, because when we came back and we were treated so badly, and now the guys that are coming back from this Iraq and Afghanistan and sandbox, and they get all this thank you for your service and things like that. Well, I like to think that we paved the way for them, because I believe the country went through kind of a collective guilty conscience about the way they treated us. So the pendulum has swung the other way, and the guys coming back today are getting a much friendlier reception when they come in. Yeah, I'd only been out of the Army for a year or two when I bought this bike. I got out in 71, and the first one I bought was a 73, but it didn't last more than about 5 months. I put it in a ditch. So I took what was left of the bike and the insurance check and went to the dealer when you could still do this sort of thing and made a deal for this one. The guy says, well, I don't have any 73s left, but I have a 74 still in the crate. Not bad for a almost 45-year-old machine. I like to tell people I bought it new at 74. 2 more payments and it's all mine.